p.m. and I now call to order the Grandem Public Schools Board of Education meeting. This is the April 8th, 2021 meeting. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the Grand Island Independent, which is a district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those in attendance to know that copies of the Open Meetings Act are available at the entrance to the boardroom. If anyone in attendance is interested in addressing our board, you're welcome to do so. We simply request that you complete the appropriate form and turn it into us now so that you may be recognized during the public forum part of our meeting. And these forms are also located by the entry doors of this room. Mrs. Simmons, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Hinkle?
Present.
Mrs. Albers? Present. Mr. Brown? Yes. Mrs. Juergens has given notice that she will be late. Mr. Barsonis has given previous notice that he will be absent. Mr. Hawley? Here. Ms. Wolf? Present. Dr. Brose? Here. Mr. Helinski?
Here.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is our mission statement. Mr. Helinski, will you please read that for us?
Every student, every day is success. In educating students, we teach hearts as well as minds. Student commitments within the school district of Grand Island. Every student will be taught to read, write, and communicate effectively, solve problems, acquire and apply knowledge, and demonstrate mastery through performances to the best of the student's abilities. Every student will be treated with fairness and dignity. Every student will be honored for their unique qualities and backgrounds. Every student will experience a sense of belonging, contribution, and success, and every student will develop responsibility and show respect for others as well as oneself.
All right, thank you. Agenda item 4 is the public forum part. I did not receive any forms. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the board? It does not look like it. So we will move to our consent agenda. And tonight we have on the consent agenda 5.1, which is minutes from the previous month's meeting, 5.2, which are claims as submitted, 5.3, bid proposals as submitted, 5.4, staff adjustments as submitted, 5.5, treasurer's report as submitted, 5.6, grant report update, 5.7, contracts, grants, and MOUs, including 7.1, which is a ZERN, School on Demand Professional Development Agreement, 5.0 policies, including 5310, transportation on final read, 4440, purchasing authority on first read, 4442, local purchasing on first read, 7375, request for reconsideration of instructional materials or library collections on first read, 8440, use of tobacco, alcohol, and other controlled substances by students on first read. 8550 is student discipline on first read. 8570 is drug-free school and campus on first read. And 5.9 is the approval of the agenda as submitted. This is the consent agenda as approved, or excuse me, as published. Would anyone like to remove any items or add any items to the consent agenda? Does anyone have a potential conflict of interest on agenda item 5.2? Okay, you can make the recommendation.
Is the recommendation's not on here? Do I just?
Oh, yeah, just approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Second, Ms. Wolf. Any discussion? If not, please vote. Okay, motion passes. We'll move to agenda item 6, which is information items. And first up tonight is, sorry about that, I skipped here. 6.1, campus highlights, Engelman Wildcats, Wildcat readers sharing their reading focus at Engelman Elementary.
All right, good evening. So Dr. Kohler has shared this video, and they're going to tell you a little bit about how they've been approaching reading and just building some excitement in their building with something that's a little bit different. When we think about a vending machine, you think about candy, chips. It's just a little bit different.
The principal at Engelman Elementary School. We have prepared a video to explain Engelman's reading progress this year, as well as sharing 2 Engelman community projects to keep reading in the spotlight.
Hi, my name is Andrea Brunk, and I am a third grade teacher here at Engelman Elementary School. I am also the chair of the RTI, and I'm joining you tonight to talk to you a little bit about the IRIT progress that we are showing here at Engelman. As you can see, in the fall of 2020, kindergarten had 53 students who qualified for an IRIP, or an individual plan for reading. In the winter of 2021, they now only have 32 students who are still needing an individualized plan for reading. In first grade, at the beginning of the school year, we had 14 first grade students who had individualized plans, and we now only have 9 students who are needing those individualized reading plans. In second grade, we started the year in the fall with 10 students who qualified for an individual plan. And now we only have 7 students who are needing the individual plan. For third grade, we had 3 students at the beginning of the year, and now we only have 2 students as of winter of 2021. These students will also take another assessment in the spring, and again, we're hoping to see a decrease in the number of students who are needing those reading plans. Something else that's also exciting is if you look at the grade levels, the numbers that are needing the individual plans are slowly decreasing as they get up to third grade. So currently we only have 2 students who are not performing at that third grade level in third grade.
Hi, I'm Jen Ehlers, first grade teacher at Engelman Elementary. I'm here to introduce you to Kimchi, the Bookworm vending machine. We were able to buy this with funds from our Redesign that we started last year, right before the pandemic hit. So, if we come around to the front, you will see that it looks like a normal vending machine, but inside it has books. What happened was we formed a parent-teacher literacy council to work together to find out how we could get books into kids' hands so that we would be reading more and more. So we started with a readathon for 2 weeks. The parents were able to go online and register their kids, and they could donate from all over the world on their account, and they donated money, and the kids would read minutes, and the kids kept reading. We read thousands and thousands of minutes, and we were able to raise tons and tons of money, which was amazing, all for reading. And so we have students that they might fill up a positive behavior chart to come get a book. They may reach a goal that they've been working on for a while. It could be in math, it could be in reading. It can just be achieving anything, and we want to reward them, and we want to reward them with books. And if you notice, it's kind of empty right now because our kids have really loved coming to get that golden ticket, put a coin in, and then decide which book they want, and they get to take it home.
Which book were you trying to get? Julie B. Jones. Okay, push A.
I did.
And push it again. And then 6. There you go. Kush, do you know which book you want? Yep. Good choice. All right, guys. Good job. Thank you.
Hello there. My name is Mrs. Audrey Scott, and I'm the integration specialist here at Engelman Elementary. Currently, we are doing One School, One Book, which is where the entire building reads the same book at the same time. We are reading The Enormous Egg by Oliver Butterworth. All of our students have their own copy, as well as a bookmark which has a scheduled reading so that we all can stay on the same page at the same time. I have a couple students here who are going to talk to us about their thoughts on One School, One Book. 2 students that are going to talk to us a little bit about One School, One Book, and they are?
This is Madison and Ella.
And what grade are you ladies in?
4.
And my first question is, what do you like about One School, One Book?
My favorite thing about One School, One Book is that you can read together as a family. My favorite part is that you get your free book.
Okay, so I asked Dr. Kohler, I said, so if the question comes up, what do you think was having the most impact on reading, she said it's hands down our new high-quality instructional resources and the letters training. So kudos for CKLA and our new instructional resources. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions or comments? Dr. Bros?
I don't have a question, but I have a granddaughter who's participating in that. And last Saturday she said, "Grandpa, guess how many books I've read?" And of course I guessed a crazy number. And she goes, "Well, no, not quite, but I hope that I get that by the end of the year." She's really turned into a very voracious reader. She was a reluctant reader when she first started. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing your story.
Any other questions? No, that's very cool. Thank you for sharing. So then you're moving on to Celine Mile Dare to Lead book study.
So Charity wanted to, Mrs. LeBury wanted to approach it just a little bit differently. Her and her staff a couple of years ago actually engaged in a book study and didn't really recognize how valuable and important it would come during the season of COVID. So they will be sharing with you how it's not just impacted them as teachers, but also into the classroom as well.
Principal at Seedling Mile Elementary, and tonight we just wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you about an implementation of a book study that we did 2 summers ago. The book that we implemented was entitled Daring to Lead by Brene Brown, and we invited all of our staff, classified and certified staff, to take part in the book study. All of us being on the same page created a common vocabulary and also a common framework that we could operate within. These systems have served us well during a pandemic and have enabled us to problem solve difficult situations and overcome. 4 of the pillars of the book that we've implemented are rumbling with vulnerability, living into our values, braving trust, and learning to rise. This framework has provided a structure for navigating new ground and creating a culture for safety for difficult conversations around students, as well as safe learning environment for our students to learn within. We have created braver leaders and a more courageous culture for our students to be successful. I've invited a few friends to talk about their implementation of the book.
A couple summers ago, we took a Dare to Lead book study, and it was a book by Brene Brown. And there was a lot of really interesting things like learning to deal with your vulnerability. And we did try that last year with my class. There were like 9 rules that she put up for kids to follow. They were very simple rules that you can get online at her website. It was a great experience. We didn't do it this year because of COVID, but we had a really good experience with it.
The teachers are a very good help to the school. That I usually see them planning fun activities and all the stuff that helps us learn in school. And that's why the school has been a great place for kids and students.
I have been using the Dare to Lead book for the last 2 years because we read it last year. And I use it in my classroom with my students. I've added a lot of things to my classroom meetings that just kind of help them be open to talking and sharing. And I do a daily check-in where they can talk to me one-on-one even through Google Classroom, and that helps them share things. And I really think it helps build relationships too. And it's also helped me build relationships within my PLC team and just anybody at school really. And it helps you have vulnerable conversations and tough conversations. And I feel like it's really helped work on building relationships both with my colleagues and in my classroom.
Thinking ahead to different book studies that we have done and thinking to ones that we might be wanting to do, The Brene Brown really sticks out as one in the past that we have done and continue to use in our daily work here at Seedling Mile. We have target words that we all know because we were all a part of the book study, including our custodian staff, our paras. Anyone at Seedling was a part of the conversation, which I think made it more impactful. So there are words such as, we need to rumble about this, or as we're having conversations that get tough, we might have to say, we will come back to this, as right now it's getting to a different situation and we need to step back and look at it, but it's not going to be forgotten. So I just think it's essential that we are all on the same page, and I love that at Seedling we are all willing to do that.
Awesome. So there are your campus highlights.
Any questions on this one? All I know is that I hadn't heard about Brene Brown until like at the beginning, probably about October, when a coworker mentioned, and now I can't stop hearing about her. So I'm going to have to read one of her books.
Yeah,
So.
she's pretty. Podcast is my favorite thing to do.
Okay.
Brene, so
good to hear.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Now we move on to 6.3. Mr. Stelk and Mr. Harden have someone new to introduce us to. I don't see Mr. Harden.
Well, good evening. It's my pleasure to bring to you this evening our new CFO. Dr. Kent Schroeder is joining us from Ravenna Public Schools, and he is officially beginning with us, I believe, this summer around July 1, but he hasn't been shy about getting involved and starting to spend time with Mr. Harden, and I believe you might start seeing him at some of the various committees and some of those kinds of things. So I'm going to ask Dr. Schroeder to come up and just maybe tell you a little bit about his background and maybe some of the things he's been doing to get acclimated to Grand Island Public Schools. And then if any of you have any questions, I'm sure you won't be shy.
Thank you. Well, good evening. As Mr. Selk said, I'm Ken Schroeder. I plan to transition to Grand Island Public Schools on July 1 and become the new CFO. I wanted to take this opportunity to personally thank each one of you and Dr. Grover for this incredible opportunity. My family and I are exceedingly excited to become part of Grand Island Public Schools and the community of Grand Island. I also wanted to thank Mr. Harden for all of his time, energy, and effort he's put into educating me. We've been meeting on weekends and corresponding, and thus far we've started on the following task. We reviewed the job description duties in detail. We've reviewed the most recent school district financial audit, discussed current projects and initiatives underway and those planned for the future. We've reviewed the Finance and Facilities Committee monthly agenda and fund balance reports. We've started planning for my training in the school district's accounting software, and I participated in the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting held on March 30th. Outside of my training experiences with Virgil, I've met with Dr. Palmer to learn about initiatives and priorities underway in the school district. I've met with 4 CFOs from like-sized schools to help begin developing that professional network of support. Reviewed the current processes and workflow associated with the monthly payroll preparations for the district. Acquired access to the board meeting software and reviewed past board meeting agendas and minutes to gain a historical background and understand the initiatives and projects you're working on. I also established my email account and business calendar with the school for the purpose of communicating with the GIPS leadership team and being able to engage in some of those meetings that Mr. Stelk had mentioned. In the near future, I plan to attend cabinet meetings held on Monday mornings, meet with the school district's bond fund manager to review the current bond fund schedule, meet the director of federal programs and special education for Grand Island Public Schools to better understand how our offices will work together. I'd like to tour each of the attendance sites in the school district and meet the building level leadership and meet the staff members in the finance office to get to know them on a personal and professional level. So, through great help from Dr. Grover, Mr. Stelk, and Mr. Harden, I am planning on a very successful transition to Grand Island Public Schools. Thank you for your time this evening, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity to serve the students of Grand Island Public Schools. I look forward to helping ensure every student has a success every day at Grand Island Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to say something, Mr. Harden, as you?
Sneaking up on me already?
Yeah, my name's on the agenda, so I'll tell you, I love to talk, right? Yeah. As you can tell, you guys are in great shape. It's just going to be a wonderful transition. I'm looking forward to just doing whatever I can to help, and you're in good hands and blue skies and sunny everything. So it's all good. I could stand all night talking about all good, but it's all good.
You must have found a pot of money, huh?
Tell them what you said. Tell them what I said to you the first time that we met. And if you're too embarrassed, I will.
I said, I think it was something about Mr. Patch, and he wasn't sure if he.
What I said in his office was, I can't believe I'm standing here with you. And Virg humbly said, why is that? And I said, well, Virgil, you're kind of a legend.
Yeah.
And I'm incredibly flattered and intimidated to walk in your shoes.
Yeah, he's going to do awesome, and phone call, email away, so it's all good.
Nice.
So.
Thank you. Thank you. And welcome, Dr. Schroeder. We're very happy that you're here with us. Very grateful that you found your way here, and we're excited. So,
thank you.
All right. So we'll move along to agenda item 6.4. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Wolf?
I just want to know, is your new favorite color purple?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
My wife and I are going to go shopping for a bunch of purple.
Awesome. All right, so 6.4 is the Grand Island Education Association Retirement and Years of Service Celebration. Mrs. Lewandowski.
That sounds so weird. Still sounds very weird to me. I know. Yeah, that's because every letter counts in that one. Good evening. Dr. Grover, Dr. Dexter, Mrs. Hinkle, and Board of Education members. My name is Karma Lewandowski, and I am here on behalf of the Grand Island Education Association Community and Publicity Committee. The GIEA Communication and Publicity Committee is in charge of the retirement and recognition for years of service reception for Grand Island Education Association members in May. I am here to cordially invite you to attend our celebration. The event will be held on Wednesday, May 12th, and it will be at the Balls Reception Hall at 213 North Sycamore Street. There will be a social time beginning at 4 p.m. with a dinner and a limited presentation to begin at 4:30. I have a save the date card for each of you. We hope to see each of you there. And this year, a certain someone will be getting her 25-year recognition. So if you guys want to come and celebrate with me, please do. Thank you for your time this evening. Thanks, Karma.
You're
Congratulations,
welcome.
25.
Thank you. I know.
Not on. 6.5 is the Memorandum of Understanding with Marzano Research, Dr. Palmer.
Yes, and I am here just to present this as info and action tonight just because of the timeliness of the agreement. This is an agreement between us and Marzano Research. Basically, they are trying to apply for a grant that would allow them to work on a toolkit that aligns with some research, implementing the recommendations of teaching strategies for improving algebra knowledge in middle and high school students. And so the toolkit that would be developed is something that would be available nationally. And so when they came to us several months ago and started asking if we would be a part of that, and we asked a lot of questions, first of all about capacity and things like that, like how much time, what does this mean? And we were actually recommended to them by the state of Nebraska to get involved because they are appreciative of our work. So that was humbling. We really appreciate that recognition. So technically, we are just agreeing to participate in some way should they get the grant. The benefits to us really include, being part of the grant work, access to local, state, and national experts, attending some national conferences, all surrounding math, and that is an area that we are continually working on as far as our kids achieving in algebra in 8th and 9th grade, and that will be the focus. We have several options in how we participate, so depending on our capacity, we can be just a thought partner, we can be a reviewer of the documents, we can be a developer, we can help create them, or we can try them out and be implementers and be able to see, are these tools in this toolkit something that we would want our teachers to use. And so that's kind of a benefit too, because we'd be looking at it through our lens as to what our teachers need for professional learning and access to resources if we do participate. So timeline, really the grant, once approved, they would start the development of the toolkit during the 2022-23 school year, and it would go through 24-25 with final submission of the toolkit published in 2026. So with that, I'll just open up to any questions.
All right. Are there any questions? Mr. Helinski.
Just so I understand this, we can participate in one or all four of those areas, is that correct?
Correct.
Would there be any reason why we wouldn't want to participate in all four of the areas?
It might depend on the work that we're doing at the time and the capacity that we have, because if you're involved in being the developer part, it's pretty time consuming and would take people away from their current positions. So it kind of depends on where we are in our district with the work at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Great question.
Any other questions? Dr. Brose.
Dr. Palmer, do you know how many other schools have been invited to participate across the nation? We certainly aren't the only one.
No. I know across the state of Nebraska, there are some, I believe. Yeah, I don't know for sure. Sorry, I can find out.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. And like Dr. Palmer said, it'll be back for vote later tonight. All right, so, apologize, that keeps jumping on me. 6.6 is On Track to Thrive 2025, Strategic Plan Revision and Budget Alignment. Dr. Grover and her cabinet.
We should try that out. Whoever the first person come up with, let them do a solo.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for the opportunity for us to present tonight. As we all know, our school district has been faced with the pandemic just like every other school district, as well as every other organization. As we kind of think about not only the pandemic, but the budget challenges that we have been up against in our school district, we know that our goal is always to build back stronger and make sure that we remain relevant for the students that we serve. I do believe that the folks that will survive this pandemic will be the ones that will be innovative and they will be strategic thinkers. I'm excited to be joined tonight by members of the cabinet as well as district directors. While we will be presenting this runway plan for On Track to Thrive 2025, I would like to make sure that I enforce that we have had so much contribution to these efforts from all of our leadership within Grand Island Public Schools, many of our teachers serving on different committees, as well as members of the community that also serve on our communities. So with that being said, we'd like to go ahead and get started. Again, we'll have some other members of the cabinet along with Mr. Giberson, who will be representing our administrators to present this information. As we have went about this journey and thinking about how we move forward, we know that we had a lot of work that was already underway in the school district. Our strategic plan, we can be very pleased that we adopted the plan in 2017, and we're about 85% complete with the plan. We had the opportunity to take a look at what was left and to make some determination about what was still relevant for our students today. We also conducted a pandemic SWOT analysis to think about what were the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities that we learned about our organization. And there were a lot of opportunities that were presented to us that we'd like to continue efforts that we started during the pandemic. At the same time, our equity task force, they are moving full speed ahead. They have identified some areas that they're working on. We also were already in the throes of a staffing study from District Management Group, and thank you for the opportunity for us to go through that process. We have spent several hours of meetings with them understanding how to staff. And so with that being said, we know that we did not want to have 10 different plans running in our district. We want to make sure that we have a clear focus, we understand our goals, our targets, and how we align our resources. So while we were faced with the pandemic as well as faced with budget shortfalls, the one thing I can say about this team, we took the opportunity of this crisis to really go deeper, to understand what are the needs and how can we rethink and realign our initiatives and our priorities. So with that being said, we are excited about this invitation for innovation. And you can see through the GIPS On Track to Thrive that we will be looking at a new comprehensive strategic plan, and we will also be repurposing our resources. I think that is very critical because we have to take what we have and work with it, but we cannot lower our standards for our students. As a matter of fact, I think what you will find is that we have elevated our experiences. So just to start that off, with the support of our Board of Education, we are able to continue some of our efforts. As you know, we've already announced that we will continue our elementary virtual school. However, we have come up with a very innovative plan of how we will be able to continue to offer virtual school for our middle and our high school students. This is very critical because many of our students, they were already faced with challenging schedules where they have to work sometimes, and our schedule does not work for them. And so with our virtual school offering, we will be able to have more flexible scheduling at the middle and the high school levels. We are excited that we'll be bringing on board a new initiative called the College and Career Achievement Center. This will be undergirded by the GIPS grant. This will allow daily counseling for students to help them with their college as well as their workforce choices. Also, Thriving Minds will be expanded to more schools, offering more after-school programs. And I have to say, extremely excited about the Academy Experiences Liaison. As part of our graduate profile, we have stated that all of our students, that they will have the opportunity to have internships, job shadowing, as well as apprenticeships. And now we have another staff member that will be coming on board to help us to track how many students are actually taking full advantage of the continuum and continue to expand those relationships that we have with our business partners. The next one I want to bring to your attention is our long-range planning for extracurricular excellence. We've always looked at what we offer in our school district, and we have a lot to be proud of. There's been a great deal of concern for equity across our extracurricular activities, athletics, and as well as fine arts, and we have already contracted with a consultant. He is very experienced in this field to help us create a long-range plan. There will be 50 folks that will be involved, including parents, staff members. We do have 4 Board of Education members that will be representative of that. That work, the dates have already been set, and we look to be able to launch a full-scale plan for extracurricular excellence within Grand Island Public Schools come this fall. I would like to also take the opportunity to turn our attention to other student-centered shifts for alignment that has occurred within our school district. This was really an opportunity as we kind of thought about some of the budget challenges, but moreover, how could we be more effective with the resources that we have? We have 4 specific areas where we have made some shifts or roles, responsibilities, and experiences for our students. Academic coaches, gifted and talented, special education, and the reorg of our technology department. I do want to go a little bit deeper here because these will be changes for the upcoming school year that will impact our support programs for our students as well as our staff. So let's start with the redesign for academic coaches. Dr. Tom Jack.
Absolutely. Good evening.
our academic coaching positions will be shifting a little bit in the district. So currently we have Title I and instructional coaches who are performing some similar job responsibilities in terms of supporting teachers with job-embedded professional development. And our plan moving forward is really to unite those two groups under the umbrella of academic support coaching positions, allowing us to provide more systematic professional development to that group as a whole that'll better utilize them as levers for supporting student achievement in terms of things like data analysis, PLC supports for teachers within their PLC planning teams, and additional opportunities through direct coaching supports to teachers. The other thing that we're really focusing in on is clarifying their job responsibilities within that new description, so making really clear how they're spending their time. And we'll be using a 70-30 model for that, so 70% of their time will be devoted to direct coaching supports for teachers, things like that job-embedded professional development, attendance and support and facilitation of PLC meetings, active analysis of student data within their buildings, and direct coaching support on how to best provide Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 interventions for students so that teachers have the resources they need to best meet their students' needs. The other 30% of their time will be involved in a variety of things, including a direct focus on our letters professional development training that we've been doing that has shown us some tremendous gains already for kids in terms of training teachers on the science of reading. And so all of our coaches now at the K-8 level, our goal is to have all of them trained as letters facilitator trainers. And then at the 9-12 level, we'll be focusing on direct supports to students through our Gear Up academic coaching model. And so we're looking to expand that, so there would be a Gear Up academic coach for each content area within the high school. And we expect to add those positions soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I get to talk a little bit about our gifted and talented and how we're elevating our program and making it more visible so people really understand what our gifted and talented students are getting as a service. And we know, in the past, this has been, a real question for Grand Island Public Schools is how are we serving our gifted students? And, one difference that we're really focusing in on is the personalization, identifying what are our students' gifts and how do we really personalize their pathway for services based on what their gifts are. So just for an example, as we think about students that really need that accelerated learning, that really need to have that personalized instruction, they may be students really gifted in science and math. And so we're gonna develop their program and personalize it around some STEM activities or some STEM projects that go beyond the classroom walls. And so thinking about just what is beyond that curriculum that student needs to keep them engaged. And this goes back to our vision. We want all of our students to thrive. And by being personalized and really committed to what it is their strengths are and building and designing their pathway around that is really gonna help them continue to accelerate. Another example is just making sure that we are facilitating that advanced, rigorous experiential learning opportunities as well. Typically, you hear about students attending the Quiz Bowl or some other types of activities. Well, those are pretty much group activities with like-minded students. It's awesome. We will continue to offer those activities, but we want to go beyond that and make those connections to college and career. So we think about the Innovation Campus at UNL. What does that have to offer to some of our students that really have gifts in those areas, and how can we extend their understanding and personalize their instruction around those talents? In addition to this, one thing that we haven't really focused in on, and it's a specific need, is the professional learning for our teachers to better understand the gifted characteristics in our students. How do they identify what those are? And then what are the instructional strategies that they can do within the classroom to make sure that they are getting them what they need and to support them in their acceleration of learning as well. So we really look forward to building and designing those experiences for our kids based on our individual student needs. Thank you.
Well, in the area of special education, we've identified 2 critical areas to study further and shift moving forward. First, we will intentionally look to strengthen our understanding and usage of positive and proactive continuum of of services for all staff and administrators. We really want to create that common language and practice. And this is going to allow us to increase the understanding that the implementation of specialized instruction is actually an additional layer of support. Our job is to ensure that our students have access to general education, core instruction, and specialized instruction is that additional layer. And so we're going to focus on increasing the understanding and usage of that. And then second, we're going to be clarifying the roles, responsibility of all special education team members. This includes resource teachers, speech language pathologists, school psychologists, social emotional cognitive learning coaches, paraprofessionals, as well as special education supervisors. What we learned through all the information we received back is that these specialists can be pulled many different ways and directions. And so we're going to need to develop some explicit service delivery models and timeframes, kind of like what Dr. Tom Jack talked about for academic coaches, to really safeguard direct instructional, specialized instructional time with our students. As part of the shift, we'll continue to align and streamline compliance practices that, as special education, we have to follow, but we can align and streamline those practices and systems so we have more instructional time and direct service to our students. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to talk a little bit about the reorganization in the Information Technology Department. The last 12 months have been a perfect storm for the entire district, the world, but I'm gonna take it in our department as well. We went from the biggest, I think, increase in technological adoption in any industry, but in education particularly, that we've ever seen. And so to do that, as well as to change to remote learning for everything, has just really culminated in some interesting identification of challenges and things, areas of strength and where we had some areas for progress. And so, the DMG review came out the beginning of last year, and then COVID hit, and we were scrambling for so long to get things done. But really, as we look at the changes over the last 9 years, we've increased device counts by 250%. We've gone from about 5,000 devices to over 12,500 in the past 9 years, and we've increased the FTE to support those 6%. And so, but with technology comes innovation, comes productivity, right? And so one of the things that we looked at was what roles have changed, what has shifted, and what are the challenges that we're facing today. And some of those were pretty obvious. Repair times on devices. We were relying on centralized repair in many cases, and that was causing 10-day delays up to 3 to 4 weeks sometimes during the busiest peak times. That was a struggle. We also struggled with some complex issues getting resolved in timely manners. So it became pretty obvious that as we removed some of the daily activities from the building level tech support, and we centralized that because we needed to in order to grow in the organization and how we work with curriculum apps and work with technology, there were some gaps that weren't being met. And so one of those, again, in COVID, remote, is security. So all of these things going back and weighing on our minds, we decided to look at how all the roles are being utilized. And so this is a description or a chart, org chart of what we currently had. It shows the central office, the Neal administration are the 3 top boxes there. It's the network and systems administration team. There's 3 individuals. There's a help desk support team, and then there's an analyst team that support the SIS and state reporting. The bottom box there across the entire bottom is the building level technical support. So you'll notice at the elementaries there were 16 3/4 FTEs for media and tech support. In the middle schools there were 6 FTE, media and tech, and then at the high school there were 4. what we're trying to accomplish by making the change is actually to push that layer 2 and layer 3 support into the buildings. And so as we look at some attrition, and we have a couple of retirements, it made it pretty obvious, as well as reevaluating staffing ratios based on enrollments at facilities, we came up with this plan. So what you'll notice is there was some shifting in the Neal administration, the central office. One of our network and sysadmins is retiring, so one of the help desk support personnel is keenly suited to make a replacement as we shift that role into the hardware repair and endpoint management. And then we aren't going to refill the FTE that was vacated for that. We're going to push that down into the elementary and into a 12-month position that can support on-site layer 2 type problems. In addition, I mentioned staffing ratios. We reevaluated where we were at with our elementaries and found that we had a couple of FTEs that were based on enrollments that were just no longer there because of shifting demographics and populations throughout the community. We recaptured those in an effort to help fund the remaining. In the middle schools, we had another retirement. The middle schools were a mixed bag. It was inconsistent how they applied, who was doing tech, who was doing media. And so we went in with the opportunity to say, let's standardize this a little bit. Let's make the media assistant in the building focus primarily on media. Obviously, they're still going to support the walk-ins and they're still going to do and help their colleagues, but we're going to train up and get that repair delivered to those buildings so that those repairs are happening on site at all levels. And that way we can improve that turnaround time, but also have that side-by-side coaching. One of the things we found as we investigated peer districts is that to get that coaching into the classroom helps you in the long run because you're right there, you have a good understanding of the problem, you're able to resolve the problem, you're able to explain it, and then obviously the next time that problem happens, the person who's there will know how to resolve it themselves. And so promoting that self-service is going to help our organization as well.
Okay, very good. And I want to thank you in advance because this is a pretty thorough report. With our work with DMG, one of the things that they challenged us on was really getting to a top priority within the district. We have a lot of innovative programs, but we want to make sure that our foundation is strong for our students. So Dr. Palmer is going to talk about literacy as our main lever.
Yeah, so this is exciting that we are making this commitment to literacy. And what I loved about some of the work that we've been doing lately is just, it was pushing us to get even more specific. Well, what about literacy? Where do we need to focus? And it's really helped us really think about our plan as we move forward. We think about our North Star, our graduate profile for our students to be college, career, world ready. We want them to make, they have to be able to read, write, reason, speak, and listen. They have to have those skills in order to be successful and to be in order for them to thrive. And so by intentionally calling this out, what it looks like, sounds like, that we're aligning our curriculum, that we're aligning our funds to help support literacy, K-12, PK-12 in our district, we're really going to be able to see that through line and see the impact on our students. So when you think about a literacy coalition, we've never done this before, but I'm really excited about what this might look like. It's a group of people throughout the district that are going to come together, and they're the guiding coalition of the work. They're the ones that are excited about it. They're going to move the work. They're going to give us feedback on how we're doing in the work. Are we following our plan? Do we need to shift our targets? And give us the feedback. How's it going in the buildings? How are people receiving it? So we're really excited about having this opportunity to have a literacy coalition. We already have started this work with our early literacy model that Dr. Bills has promoted and implemented, and we're pretty excited about moving that forward. When we think about it already, 80% of our kindergarten teachers are trained in the science of reading. 60% of our first grade teachers are trained in the science of reading. We want to expand that all the way up through our high school levels, making sure that our teachers that are in front of our students have the right training. We also know that we're spending some money on some high quality instructional resources and materials. And this is really key. It's not just about the materials, it's how our teachers use them. And so investing in the professional learning that our teachers need to use the materials in order to specifically personalize and meet the needs of our students. And so as we think about the current benefits of our efforts, our next steps are really about defining what PK-12 literacy means in our district for Grand Island Public Schools and what it means for our students, evaluate what we're already doing and build off of what's already in place, as well as identify that multi-system of support to personalize instruction where it's needed and align our professional learning. So we look forward, not just from an L4L team, but as a district, to really focus in on literacy and ensuring that our kids are ready to thrive when they graduate. Thank you.
Thank you. We know back in March 2020, when we first were hit with the pandemic, we did not have the support of certain funds. But then along the way came the CARES Act dollars and now the Esser Funds. Dr. Dexter is going to come up and she's going to talk a little bit about how we have been thinking about the Esser dollars, just so you know the planning that we are doing around the use of those funds.
Several teams have been meeting to plan and put processes in place to support students with the Esser funds. And so our first call to action was, what do we call it? Some of us were calling it CARES dollars, some Esser's dollars. And the bottom line is it's Esser, and that stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Funds. And that is established as part of the Education Stabilization Fund, which is the COVID Relief Act. CARES dollars. So moving forward, it will be Esser. Then Esser has Esser 1, Esser 2, and Esser 3 will be out in May. And so our Esser 1 funds we really use for safety, transportation, PPEs. Virgil and Dan were a very big part of that plan. Esser 2 is due at the end of this month. And so we have Cabinet meets weekly. On Task to Thrive meets 2 times a week. Pandemic team meets 3 times a week to problem solve, and then L4L, I think they meet 24/7. But all of these teams work in groups, but then we come back together because we have the Cabinet and the On Task to Thrive team. And so when you think about Esser's 2 is really about that learning recovery. Then Esser's 3 will be about mental health, early literacy, homeless, really focusing in on those demographic groups that would need a lot of extra support. And then when we look at our plan, safety and security, professional development, early childhood literacy, mental health, college and career connections, accelerated academic supports is really key. We had our equity meeting today, and we were talking about that our early learning students coming in have had a lot of trauma, and are they ready to be kindergarten ready and learn? So putting in some extra supports to help those kindergartners be ready to read at 3rd grade level and 3rd grade. Technology, and then of course our equity task force. So the Esser's funds will be diligent about it and really think through the best way to spend those funds to support kids.
Thank you, Dr. Dexter. You know, in order for us to be able to follow these initiatives, our facilities have to be in line. So you know our master facility planning is underway. Jennifer's going to provide us an update.
Thank you. Yes, we all know how important the learning environment is for our staff and for our students, both in terms of safety, comfort, and success. Success as learners and success as teachers. And thanks to our taxpayers for the bond issue a few years ago, we were able to rebuild several of our buildings that just needed to go away. They couldn't really be remodeled. We were able to make some additions and some remodeling to other buildings, and that's been a tremendous help. Although there are still some needs that remain. There are some buildings that don't have the same learning environment that most of our buildings have, and we need to maintain those buildings. And some of you on finance and facility can go way back and know how our building fund and our dollars for that maintenance have really dwindled over the years. So therefore, we embarked on the Master Facilities Plan, which includes formulas to help us evaluate our needs and the cost of maintaining our facilities. So the next slide kind of reminds you, and many of you have been part of this, so far we've had 7 input sessions with over 300 participants, and we really talk about 4 areas in these meetings. The first area is PK and elementary, the second is middle school, the third is high school, and then the fourth is other. So that can be maybe other facilities or programs that people would like us to explore. It could be things like this building, the principal building. It could be facilities like we've heard a field house and a pool mentioned. So just a wide variety of things. We've also heard people talk about some of our alternative programs like skills and success and the things needed there. So our next step is we do want student input. That's been something that we have not had in those 7 sessions so far. And then we are working, Michelle is working diligently to determine themes across those stakeholder groups and to record what we've got. We have pages and pages and pages of information. And then it'll be up to you and Dr. Grover to really set the next steps for the master facilities plan. We anticipate you'll probably want to have a workshop to help us prioritize those things and then decide the next steps going forward.
Excellent, thank you. So as we think about our alignment of resources, you've heard a lot tonight about the initiatives that are underway, as well as some new exciting initiatives and maybe even some positions. One of the things I want to draw your attention to is that we were able to make these changes without coming to ask for any increase in budget authority. We've been able to take the resources that we have to utilize it. By really looking at the academic return on investment and going through this annual review and refinement process. We do see this as part of our process going forward to have an annual reflection of how our resources are aligned. I'd like to also point out that by taking the DMG recommendations, they had 11 recommendations for us. At this point, we have acted on 3 of those, and it alone resulted in over $1 million that we were able to reallocate towards these initiatives. So at this time, I mentioned earlier that our leadership has been involved, and Mr. Giberson, he's going to come up. We have a lot to be proud of within Grand Island Public Schools, the number one being, of course, our Board of Education, our community, but our staff. You can look at the leaders here, the thought that's going into this process, and our staff and their willingness to go along with us on this runway as we approach a new strategic plan. I think that's pretty remarkable. So, Mr. Giberson, I'll turn it over to you to help us think about the points of pride and the leadership at the campus level, closest to our students, to move this plan forward.
Well, thank you, Dr. Grover, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening to speak to you. And I'm here speaking not only for the building administrators at the Academies of Grand Island Senior High, but also the great administrators who have led through an awesome process of having a strategic plan under their feet every day. And there's no doubt that our district's strategic plan has guided our work to continue to grow as educational leaders and as a district in our practices with a focus on providing exceptional educational experiences to each student every day in the classroom with no exception. As reflective leaders, we continue to plan, we continue to learn and make adjustments along the way to ensure that we are collectively and intentionally working with our amazing teachers and staff. We are so proud of our aligned efforts to serve students at the highest level possible. And here are some examples, and you see the slide. And I'm adding my own personal pridefulness here. I'm very proud, we are at the Academies of Grand Island Senior High, of our relentless focus on rigor that ensures students develop high-level cognitive skills with standards-based lesson planning that exhibits critical thinking, analysis, generating, and testing hypothesis. We have many schools that have demonstrated this in our district with honors. Second, we are so proud that we are able to offer 70+ advanced placement and dual credit opportunities with the partnership of Central Community College, Wayne State College, the University of Nebraska at Kearney, and not to mention our long-standing relationship with the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and the Nebraska College Preparatory Academy. We celebrate the strength of our diversity with our new eyes. Our district-wide equity model has supported our efforts in eliminating the racial barriers and shattering the obstacles that get in the way of the access to opportunities for all students. We have received state and national recognition for the Academy model, which continues to snowball as we grow and develop. In fact, Monday, Secretary of State Robert Evnen had the pleasure of honoring Mr. Kendall Bartling with a special award, which he'll tell you about. I don't want to steal your thunder, Kendall. But not only did Secretary of State Evnen recognize our work, our graduate profile, but so did Tracy Overstreet, our election commissioner here in Hall County. And I was surprised by that, but honored, and we actually talked about that. So that's another example of we're getting out there. So finally, just our audacious plans that have transformed our high school and provide all students new opportunities for their college and career readiness have come to fruition because of our great community's ability and willingness to play a major role in our progressive efforts, in our current reality, but also in our preferred future. And that's what we're excited about as building level principals. We're excited about our future with On Track to Thrive 2025, and our continual burning desire and expectation to have 100% of our graduates leave us with an enduring college, community, career, and world readiness plan for their own personal lives. I thank you for the time tonight. We're looking forward to the future. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Giberson. So as we kind of prepare to wrap up, or should I say go down the runway for takeoff, I do want to maybe reiterate that this is the runway plan. This is not the full strategic plan. We are still in the midst of developing that, and we will have a number of stakeholder engagement opportunities as well as opportunities for the board to be engaged. We do want to start sharing the information with our staff rooms because we have some shifts that are happening within our district, as you heard. So we will go public tomorrow. We'll be able to, first of all, share it with our staff so that they have the same information and start some communication with our families so that they can continue to engage in the process. I think our transparency and our collaboration is key for us in Grand Island Public Schools. So we are prepared to move forward with providing the best and the highest quality of education for our students, and we cannot do that without our Board of Education. So thank you so much for allowing us to present our runway plan, and at this time we will certainly entertain any questions. First of all.
We need to recognize that there is a lot of work put towards this, especially as you're working on everything else. So thank you very much. So anybody have any questions or comments at this point? I'll kind of get us started. So going back to and I may have missed this, I'm going to get to the right page here, sorry, where we were talking about the Literacy Coalition. Can you give some examples of who might be on that? Not the people's names, but the roles that they play. Who will be involved on that committee? Because you mentioned they'll be the champions moving in this forward. Is that right?
Right. So we definitely want representation of, our teachers that are really passionate about this work. The idea for the coalition is that they want to be able to stand strong and help move the work forward, right? So I foresee, we haven't developed yet, but I foresee teachers, administrators, central office folks that we're a team, and we're all really focused on moving that work forward.
Okay, great. And then I'll let you stay there, because then also when you were talking about that, so I think in the past, the letters training was an optional training that employees could take, right? So is this now moving to it'll be required for everyone? Or are we still going to allow that to be optional?
Yeah, I think that's in our conversations, right?
Okay.
Like, what does that look like, and how do we make that happen? I think people are really just seeing the benefit of it right now because they're seeing the kids, they're seeing the impact on their students,
Sure.
and so I definitely feel like there's an underlying understanding of the benefit of the training. So it's just how do we move that forward? What does that look and sound like? What's the timeline? I think we have some decisions to make there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, Dr. Brose?
Dr. Palmer. I'm really interested, and quite excited about that PK-12 literacy model. We're also, are we looking at that to cross over all curriculum areas? Because literacy is not, to me, just English language arts
Right.
or English class at senior high.
Right, when we think about how literacy is defined, it's read, write, speak, listen, and reason. Well, that can happen across any core area. So it's really about what are those strategies in the classrooms that go across all core areas that are happening for all students. So it's just something that, we're asking kids to reason, to support evidence, to engage in complex reading and technical reading pieces. And so, yeah, it's not just about an ELA class. It applies to all curriculum areas.
And then I have one other question. Some of us have been around long enough to see what goes around, comes around, and goes around and comes around again, the gifted program. I hope we can come upon a model that we build upon our mistakes and find a way to move forward for those kids, because I'm still an advocate. I'm an advocate for all of them. However, it's a program to me that has not ever really come to into its own in Grand Island. And this whole model, wow, this is exciting stuff. And this is not your father or mother's Grand Island Public School. This is good hard work, and I'm excited to be a part of it. But I am still looking at that gifted program with a critical eye.
Well, and if you know Kara Kuhl, she's very passionate about this work as well. And I have full faith that you will start to see, a different model coming through. And she's pretty excited about what's the possibilities and the opportunities. And I think she's got a team that's very, engaged and committed as well to moving it forward. So yeah, I think you'll see some different things happening.
I want to say one thing around the gifted program. I think Dr. Rose has me just as passionate about it, even though I wasn't in GT. Today, during our equity work, and some of you have been with me all morning, we had equity task force meeting today. And what we've been trying to work through are what we call system changes. And in order for us to understand if we've reached that point, we developed some guiding questions. This was really exciting. We had about 8 national leaders on the call with us today, people from everywhere, DC, Philadelphia, Kansas, you name it. There were a lot of people there pushing our thinking, but also learning alongside us with the work. One of the things that we talked a lot about, if we're going to reach equity, and equity has to be for all students, and that means our gifted and talented students as well, that can we see a visible difference? And that's what we are seeking with our gifted and talented program, a visible difference. We have to be able to say that we are serving our gifted and talented students differently. And so I think we have a better lens on now about the work, and I know it's something that we need to be held accountable for within our community. So I just want you to know that as part of the equity conversation, because we don't often think about gifted and talented when we talk about equity, that they are part of the conversation, and we will be looking for a visible difference for our students. Thank you, Dr. Palmer and your team for working on that.
All right, any other questions? To your point, Dr. Grover, it just makes me think about something that I heard at work today, that through this pandemic and then also through the racial unrest that we've had since last year, none of us are the same, and none of us will ever be the same again, regardless of what role we have. And so what excites me about when I see the work that you've put to this is that it's a recognition of that we are not the same school district that entered 2019-2020 school year. And that I also see us truly moving the needle on equity. And one of those is, and because this is a big step for us, the long-range planning for the extracurricular excellence. It's going to shatter and break the mold for a lot of people, and it might be uncomfortable. for a lot of people, but it's necessary if we really truly want to become an equitable district. And so I'm excited about it. So thank you to Mrs. Albers, Dr. Brose, and Mr. Hilinski for joining us on that committee, and very excited about it. So.
Just to add to that real quick, the thing that excites me, and I'm with you, Dr. Rose, on the gifted program. We talked about that at length a little bit on one of the breakouts that we had this morning. But it was a big thing about equity is everybody has to be on the same page or it does not work. And I can tell you that I think that just the short time I've been on this board, I think we're all on the same page. And if you're not, this gets you on that right there. And that's what kind of gets me excited about reading through this, is that it puts everybody on the same page. Everybody knows where we're going. Everybody knows the playing field. And I agree with you. I think it's going to just shatter what we used to do. And GIPS in the yesteryears is gone. And maybe for the better, too, because this is going to make us stronger.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Okay, we will move on. 6.7 is the contract from Policy Studies Associates for the strategic plan, what we were just talking about. Mrs. Worthington.
That follows up quite well. I don't have to share as much information because you've heard part of it. Mrs. Hinkle, you might want to open the first document. It's the most comprehensive of the four. There's also a proposed contract as an attachment, and then a shorter scope of service that goes with the contract, and then the needs analysis is there if you have any questions about that. This is information tonight. We'll bring it back for action next time, like usual. We did do a slightly different approach, though, just so you know, and especially if you're on Finance and Facilities Committee, you might be wondering. We received the contract at a time when we couldn't really take it to Finance and Facilities. PRP, Public Relations Partnership Development Committee, was going to meet, and I'm going to be the lead for the strategic plan. I also help oversee that committee, so that seemed like a good place to take it first. So they have looked at it. We will take it to Finance and Facilities next month before we come back to an action item, because all contracts at some point go through Finance and Facilities Committee. We are asking for you to allow us to work with policy research associates to help us with our strategic plan. As you have kind of heard tonight, we're trying to bring together several plans. We're trying to bring together our strategic plan, what's still remaining from year 5. We've gone through as a cabinet and determined what's been completed, what still needs to be completed as is, and what maybe needs to be completed but needs to be tweaked a little bit. So we have that to look at. We also have our strategic equity action plans, our C plans that you heard Mr. Hilinski talk a little bit about. We have some recommendations from the DMG staffing study. And then, as Dr. Dexter mentioned, we want to be very, very intentional with how we're using those Esser funds. They're short-term funds. They're meant for recovery from COVID. So we want to be intentional about those. So this is a tremendous amount of information in different places, different platforms, different formats. So it would, and we're also on a very tight time frame. We would like you to approve our strategic plan in July, so just a few months. So in working with PSA, there'll be about 3 to 4 people from there that we'll work with, but Jason is the lead. We've already had several conversations with him just to get to know each other. He has a background in strategic planning and equity, so we think that will be very valuable to us in bringing the plans together. He's already started to share some kind of themes he's seeing come out. I think he shared some with Dr. Grover today. He's called me a number of times with questions where I can tell he's really getting into understanding our district. So they will put together the draft of the strategic plan along with us to give him input. And that will prepare us, I think, to be more successful, especially with this aggressive timeline. And because we're all so close to these 4 things I mentioned, they can kind of look outside and really ask those critical questions about how are you going to move the needle forward. The baseline cost for their work is $37,000. What we talked about in PRPD is asking the board to approve up to $45,000. They offer several different alternatives, and we don't want to just automatically do them. We want to make sure they're helpful to us, but some seem like they'll be very helpful. For example, working with the cabinet to develop our department plans to make sure they align with the strategic plan. Maybe helping with some of the presentation materials for the board. Maybe we'll do that in-house. So that is our request today as information, and then next time as action.
and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Does that mean you don't like this idea? What questions do you have?
I'm not sure who to direct this at, and I think I saw it on this last slide, but are we gonna do like we did last time with listening sessions throughout the community? I mean, I know we've been doing that for facilities, but the last time we did it, we gathered a whole bunch of information on a whole bunch of other topics too. It's just a question.
Yeah, and that is a good question, and you'll see in here there is a part about stakeholder engagement. We see it a little differently this time because we do feel like we have a lot of stakeholder engagement already to put into it, but we definitely want to get input, maybe at the point, Dr. Grover, please correct me if you see it differently, maybe at the point where we have a draft, or where we at least have those main themes that we'd like to build into our strategic plan. Thank you, that was a great question. That's important to have that stakeholder engagement. Any other questions? No? All right, exciting,
Right,
thank you. Okay, 6.8 is the construction update. Mr. Petch.
Thanks, Mrs. Hinkle. Last month we did a tour at the Early Childhood Education Center. I thought that that went extremely well. Everyone kind of got a look at the spaces. They're awesome. Really, so what's taken place since that tour last month is we're still working on more of our finishes. We're finishing on the mechanical, electrical infrastructure that occurs, back of house, above the ceiling, and so now the ceilings are starting to get constructed. We started some of our floor finishes and some of our wall finishes, and so we're just going to keep moving that forward into the, into this spring and then summer. Everything's going pretty well so far, so I just hope we don't have any, hiccups with some of the storms and things, that they are affecting some products, but so far, so good. So I'll conclude and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Mr. Petch? Nope, thank you very much. Thanks. It was a wonderful building so far. All right, so we're glad to have Mr. Bartling with us tonight for his student representative report. He got his last shot today. Hopefully you're still doing okay. Okay, so go for it.
All right. Yeah, like President Hinkle said, I did get my second dose of the Pfizer vaccine. I'll go a little bit out of order here. That means I'm complete with my series, and I'll be fully vaccinated in 2 weeks as per CDC guidelines. And as with all area high schools, Grand Island Senior High has been offered vaccines for students, and the school is taking them up on that offer. And it is available to all seniors, as far as I understand, tomorrow. Prioritizing senior students for these vaccinations help relieve some of the stress when it comes to planning and executing our staple events, such as prom and graduation. And it ensures that students will be ready for the professional and collegiate fields that await them outside of Grand Island Public Schools, as colleges, workforces, and a variety of different things are planning to require or mandate those vaccines. Speaking of staple senior events, prom and graduation have both been approved by the pandemic team as currently planned. This was publicized in news outlets and district communications in the past few weeks. These events will definitely look different, but with the rest of our year, they have been reimagined to ensure that they can happen safely with the least amount of risk. Prom is free this year with no dress code requirement and with 12-person pods where people are allowed to dance however they'd like, or distancing is not required in those pods, so you're able to dance with your date if you'd like. And a number on that, with 1 day left to run on registering for that prom, we have 130 students signed up, and we're expecting to get quite a few forms tomorrow, as that is the last day to submit those. And then an update on graduation, that's going to be outdoors this year, weather permitting, in Memorial Stadium at Grand Island Senior High, with 6 guests permitted per graduate. So I'm looking forward to both of these events very, very much. Going back to academics, students in 10th and 11th grade completed the pre-ACT and ACT tests respectively on April 6th. This test counts as both a state assessment and as an ACT just for students in general. While I took my school-provided ACT in October this year because of the pandemic, it actually netted my highest score and attained me quite a few scholarships, so I'm very happy for that opportunity, and I'm proud. I think most of our student body is as well. We did have an virtual job fair for seniors, I believe yesterday, in lieu of an in-person fair event. We received information from several area employers, as well as the Nebraska Department of Labor, on open positions in the Grand Island area and tips for employment and becoming a competitive candidate outside of school, which is really, really good to have. National Honor Society inducted both the class of 2021 and the class of 2022 into the Gish chapter of NHS in 2 separate ceremonies in March. These ceremonies celebrated the commitment to service, character, scholarship, and leadership of all of the inductees. And shortly after that, both classes participated in Project Hunger's silent Easter basket auction, volunteering throughout the week and the event to make sure everything went off without a hitch. And I believe, if my mental math is right, we put in over 300 man hours, which I'm very, very proud of. And then lastly, it's news about Ken again. So as most of you know at this point, I've personally been organizing voter registration drives at local high schools, starting with Grand Island Senior High, then over to Grand Island Central Catholic. The natural next step in this process was to go out to Northwest and to register voters, so I began the process of organizing that drive. After acquiring the normal approval from the election office, I got a weird text. The Secretary of State is in town next Tuesday, and I think he's going to stop by the voter registration. Hope that's okay. I was not one to object, and I organized and held the drive as normal. As I would later find out, this was not just a quick stop by a voter registration drive. My colleague Hayden Price from Grand Island Central Catholic and myself were both recognized for outstanding accuracy in the registration that we performed at Central Catholic, and the Secretary of State awarded me with the first ever Secretary of State's citation in recognition of my service to Hall County and to the citizens of the state of Nebraska. I'm deeply honored to receive something like that. It's just beyond words to get that sort of a recognition. That was initially the end of my report, but I got home today and I found a envelope in my mailbox from the United States Senate. And this was something that I'd previously mentioned to you guys. I had requested tickets to the inauguration. The inauguration did not go as planned this year. However, Senator Ben Sass did send out, as well as many other senators, commemorative packets that would have been just like had you gone to the inauguration. So I did receive tickets, signed portraits of the president and the vice president, as well as a program. So just thought you guys might want to hear that update. That concludes my report, and I'll field any questions that you may have at this time.
All right, are there any questions?
I got a question for you, Kendall. How is the senior class taking the vaccinations? I mean, is pretty much all the kids want them, or is it pretty much, no, I'm not? Is it half and half? What's kind of going on there? What's the feeling anyway?
Yeah, the conversation I've had with my peers has been overwhelmingly positive in terms of I want to go out and I want to get this vaccine. In fact, we've had a couple of students who are eligible outside of this drive that decided that they would go ahead and take that initiative and are already having their first dose outside of this drive. I think the demand is high, and we saw this with Central Catholic earlier this week as well. There's students want to get this vaccine. Students want to return to normal. So at least at Grand Island Senior High, I know that we're going to have some pretty good results tomorrow.
Okay, and what about prom? Are you feeling that prom and graduation, is that buzz kind of going through the school as well? I mean, my company's part of that, and we've worked with you guys to separate the DJ, so you're not getting crowds around the DJ requesting songs. Figured out that process, but what's the feeling around there? Do they feel like excited about this, or because it's going to be really, really different?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true. Our prom is going to be very, very different. It's a mixed bag, as with most of the events this year. Some people are not satisfied with what we've presented. Some people are very satisfied with what we've presented. And right now, like I said, we're sitting at about 130 students registered for our prom. And that's a little bit lower than what we were expecting, to be quite frank. On a typical prom, we'll get about 360 to 380 seniors coming out with their dates. So You know, it's definitely a controversial event, but the consensus that I've heard from people who are attending is that they're very, very happy that they get to have a prom, unlike a lot of other schools in the state and the nation this year. So.
Right. Well, just schools around the state, I can tell you, in that industry, there's a lot of them that aren't doing it this year, and we've gotten those phone calls and those emails. And then one last thing, just congratulations on the award. I know Hayden very well. He's one of the students I coached through Grandson Catholic. Great guy. And you guys both well deserve that award, so congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Albers.
I just wanted to mention that Central Catholic contacted Kendall, correct? And
It was kind of, I reached out first.
okay, he reached out first.
Very, very interesting.
But I think it just shows great initiative. I mean, he has a political curiosity that I've just never seen in somebody this young. And I've learned things from him as well. And it's kind of fun when we're texting back and forth because we'll talk about, different political things that are going on. And I remember when the riot was going on at the Capitol, he just texted me and said, "Are you watching this right now?" I mean, and my husband and I were, but I think we all will get great entertainment by seeing what Kendall does in the future. And don't forget us in these low places on school boards. And the other thing I would encourage you to do is run when you're young. Because you get to my age and you're too tired to do much else. So run when you're young.
All right, any other questions? No? Okay. Oh.
Yes.
Sure. All right, thank you. All right, we move on to 6.10, the superintendent report. Dr. Grover.
All right. Yes, we're so proud of you, Kendall. We really are. You are a moving shaker. So I just wanted to mention to everyone, just because we are excited about it, although this is a different time, our Gish musical showcase is this weekend. If you didn't get a chance to see the front page of the Independent today, I believe they were on there with a few more details. And this is a very unique musical. It's co-written by 3 of our Gish students. I guess it's Jackson Kiesler, Ameline Bach-Oven, and Abby Vagart. Vagart. Oh, say it again.
Vagart.
Okay, Vagart. All right, very good. All right, and so the shows, they're still running 3 shows. I think that's pretty awesome, even during the pandemic. So they have the Friday night show at 7:30, the Saturday at 7:30, and Sunday at 2:00 p.m. And also, as you know, this is Greg Ulmer's last musical. He is retiring this year. So let's try to get out and support it. The tickets are $10. And of course, the pandemic protocols will be in play. That concludes my report for tonight.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to action items. 7.1 is the Memorandum of Understanding with Marzano Research, Dr. Palmer. And Dr. Palmer shared that earlier with us. Do you have any other items for us?
No additional information since then, no.
Did anybody think of any questions since we've heard from Dr. Palmer? No? Okay. Ms. Wolf.
I move to approve the partnership for the, am I reading the right one? Okay. The REL Central Contract as presented.
And is there a second? Second, Mr. Helinski. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Okay, motion passes. 7.2 is the Purchase Core Knowledge Language Arts, CKLA for grades K through 5. Dr. Palmer for Dr. Bills, I'm assuming.
Yes, I'm here for Dr. Bills tonight. And we don't have any new information. We brought this to you last month, and this is an example of our high-quality instructional materials. And I think Dr. Bills shared a great deal of information with you last month, even quotes from our students and our staff that are actually using it and are really excited about this opportunity to move forward with implementation.
All right, and are there any questions? Nope. Do I have a Mrs. Albers?
I make a motion to approve the funds to purchase core knowledge language arts for grades K through 5 as stated in the needs analysis.
And is there a second? Second, Ms. Wolf. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. Thank you. Are you up here for the next one? All right. So 7.3 is the purchase additional student consumables for My Perspective 3-year upfront.
All right, and this was presented last month by Dr. Bills as well. This is the actual consumables that we use for our middle school that we had not purchased for all students in the previous years. There is a slight change in the total cost. I think last month it was proposed $140,000. Unfortunately, they increased things just a little bit, and so the total cost comes to $153,107. I think we reflected that on that needs analysis as well.
All right. Any questions? Do I have a motion? Mrs. Albers.
I make a motion to approve the funds to purchase the additional student consumables for My Perspectives as stated in the needs analysis.
And is there a second? Second, Mr. Helinski. Is there any discussion? If not, please vote. Your light's still on, but you don't, right? Motion passes. 7.4 is the annexation agreement. Mr. Petch.
This was presented last month by Mr. Harden on 2 different properties, one on the northeast side of town and one on the southwest part of town. So I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Petch? Okay. Need a motion? Mr. Brown.
Would move to approve the annexation agreements as presented.
And is there a second? Second, Mrs. Albers. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. All right. 7.5 is the authority to sell and purchase real estate for construction technology program. Mr. Petch.
Also presented last month by Mr. Harden. This is just for us to purchase properties for our tech houses so that Dr. Grover or her assignee can sign that paperwork. I'll answer any questions if you have it.
Any questions? Nope. Motion, Mr. Brown.
I would move to authorize the superintendent or designate the authority to sell or purchase real estate on behalf of the Board of Education for the purpose of the construction technology program.
And is there a second? Second, Mr. Hawley. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, 7.6 is the student handbook for 2021-2022. Dr. Dexter.
And this was presented last month as well, and just some minor edits, just updating policy, and once it's approved, we'll get it to print.
Okay. Anybody have any questions after you read the whole thing? Because I know everyone did. Quizzes later. Ms. Wolf.
I motion to approve the 2021-2022 student handbook as presented.
And is there a second? Second, Mr. Brown. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. All right, 7.7 is the endpoint management solution. Mr. Gerhardt.
So this is the continuation from the conversation last month regarding a change in the system we use to manage our computers, laptops, tablets, and well, anything else that's a endpoint device. Are there any questions?
Any questions from anybody? All right, I'll have a motion. Mr. Brown?
I would move to approve the Zoho desktop central contract as presented.
And is there a second? Second, Mr. Hawley. Any discussion? Okay, please vote. Motion passes. All right. 7.8 are the GIPS copier and print services RFP. Mr. Gerhardt.
So this is a action item this evening. We brought this last month. We did an RFP starting at the beginning of January. Capital Business Systems was our lowest bidder. There are just a couple of changes that are denoted in the contract. You'll see there's some striking of some of the boilerplate language that's in the agreement. This has been through legal review. Mr. Steele has reviewed and given his stamp of approval, so it is ready to be signed. We did have an opportunity, as was indicated in the RFP, to do any subsequent negotiation after the award was made with regards to the types of equipment and or the cost. And so what we did do is Mr. Reimers came in and we evaluated what we were using in our print shop and print services here in the Neal building. And what we discovered was there was an opportunity to consolidate some equipment, but to also standardize it. And so currently we have 3 monochrome devices that are 3 monochrome devices and 1 color device. And what we found was the color device was being kind of underutilized because there were certain options and finishing options that were only available on the other devices. And so it made sense at the time to look at what we could do to increase the throughput, but also by standardizing the equipment, make some redundancy in there, because if one of those machines does go down, if that color device would go down, then they have no color. So they're doing it on the other lower performing machines throughout the rest of the organization. So the proposal actually changed to remove the 4 devices, but get 3 higher end color and monochrome devices that are all the same, all have the same set of finishing options. And by doing that, it also allowed us to include some additional professional level scheduling software and job management software on the production side. So it will make it easier for the print press operators back there to schedule out jobs for hours at a time, which will allow them to do other finishing options and things while the presses continue to run. And if we lose a single press, we've still got the other 2. The other thing that the change allows us to do is these are the higher end presses. This is the kind of work that we get when we outsource some of our brochures and some of our glossy handouts and things like that. Those workloads could then also be brought in-house because the presses that we have are similar to the presses that those outsourcing organizations actually use. It's the same thing. So some higher quality, higher throughput, and of course standardization. So the overall cost increased about $24,000 for the lease payment. The lease payments are now $409,474 for the 5-year term. And then of course the estimate didn't change for what the cost per impressions would be because that's just an estimate. But overall, obviously still the low bidder. But I think we're outfitted well for the next 5 years to meet the changing demands for the quality and the types of materials that we're putting out.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Any questions? Okay. Mr. Brown.
Seeing no questions, I would move to approve the lease and maintenance agreement and service level agreement with Capital Business Systems as presented.
And is there a second? I think I heard Dr. Bros. Okay. Any discussion? No. Please vote. Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we will move on to agenda item 8, which are the committee reports, starting first with Finance and Facilities Committee, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. I'll be reporting from the minutes from our March 30th meeting. We did review proposals. We actually sold a modular classroom, which is like a first time that anyone wanted our stuff, because when we use these mobile classrooms, they're really used. But Giltner was interested, so we actually got it sold, so that was awesome. We also did the sale of the minibuses. Again, that's been a long-term discussion, and that went to Holiday Express. We did get an update on nutrition services with Smellman. Big thing there is we are having some supply issues, which is kind of, I mean, it's making our jobs a little harder to get food out. They're sending, our distribution of food is sending substitutes and whatnot. So like I said, hopefully this will get better as time goes on, but right now it's kind of been a struggle to say the least. We did get an update again from Mr. Gearhart on the information technologies. One of the items was the LTE network that has been installed in the Howard area, actually on Howard, but in the Howard area, and getting students over to that LTE network, which is exciting, to say the least. We did review the depreciation special building fund, the general fund, our payroll, and where we're sitting for the year. We did review the transportation RFQ with Dr. Dexter, and that'll be moving forward as well. Let's see. We did talk about the annexation agreement, which we looked at this evening. Again, that's something that over the years we've been able to work out those agreements, and they're relatively straightforward with the agreement with Northwest. The project list was looked at as well. Mr. Patch gave us a couple of items that were deemed critical, which would be roof restoration at Howard and also some science room upgrades at senior high. We did talk about the budgeting process. Again, that's going to be a moving target as we go forward, and also talked about the transition for the CFO position. And Dr. Ken Schroeder did join us, so that was, I'm sure, an earful for him as we are doing these virtual, not in person, so they can go long. We did talk about a couple items on the Regional Planning Commission. We take a look at those. And I believe that would be it, except for we are, again, in the process for the master facility planning. And again, I'm not sure how many more sessions we have, but we've heard from a lot of folks so far. With that, I conclude my report. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 4th at 7:30.
Okay, thank you very much. Leading for Learning Committee, Ms. Wolf.
Thank you. We met April 6th, which was Tuesday. At the beginning of the meeting, they started discussing non-district students participating in academies. Mr. Phillips provided us an overview of the number of students from other districts attending the academies of Grand Island Senior High. He let us know the per pupil cost for students in each academy and proposed plan for working with sending districts on the process for communicating what would be provided for students attending the academies and what will be the cost to sending districts to support any additional expenses incurred for industry certification and dual credit courses. Next up, we voted on it. It was great. Okay. Then they started talking about virtual academies and our proposed CCR support plan with the middle school and high school. Dr. Dahl provided an update on current registrations and proposed plans for K-12 GIPS virtual school opportunities. Elementary virtual school has operated on its own and is going well and will have a home, per se, at Stolly Park next year. We currently have 124 registrations and will be confirming enrollment throughout the month of April. The current middle school and high school virtual design is proposed to have dedicated virtual-only teachers and administrative support. Students in the middle school and the virtual middle school will receive direct instruction for core content. And we did hear some information in regards to the Gear Up College and Career Achievement Center. Dr. Bailey provided an overview of the College and Career Achievement Center, where the primary location will be centrally located in the community with designated space in each middle school and high school site so that each student has access to resources. The Achievement Center will offer a system of support such as individual appointments with tutors, recruiters, advisors, and academic coaches to ensure academic success, to be on track to graduate and to be college and career ready. Then Dr. Dahl also provided us with some information in regards to suspension data and the trends over time. The rate of suspension has declined over the past 5 years, which I think is something to celebrate. And a deeper dive into race and ethnicity data will focus on learning individual student stories that will inform action steps that will provide the positive support needed. And, oh, I lost it. I'm so sorry. There it is. Just some changes to NSCATs. The Nebraska Department of Education recently received new information that state applications to waive reporting for summative assessments will likely not be approved by the federal government. So just something to have on our radar as well. And our next meeting is going to be May the 4th be with you.
All right, the Personnel Committee, Mr. Hawley.
I'm reporting on the minutes from the March 31st meeting. We discussed a request from the GIA president to receive a half-a-day release from her teaching assignment in exchange for GIA paying 0.5 FTE replacement. After talking about it, we decided that the impact on students and teachers alike probably wouldn't be the most positive thing, and we decided not to support it. We have a teacher in our district who is currently here working under an H-1B visa who's applying for citizenship, and we discussed sponsoring that teacher. That person's in a hard-to-fill position, EL social studies. There is some cost to that the district would have to pay based on the legality of it, but the teacher's willing to pay 50% of the costs that they can. The overall cost of that would be $8,000 to $10,000 to the district, and after discussing that, we decided that it would be it'd be really good, obviously, for them, but it also aligns with our equity policy, and so we decided to support that as well. The classified staff annualized pay. So for some of you who don't know what this is, I didn't know when I found out the other day. It's the second year of this program where full-time staff who work less than 12 months can have their pay split over 12 months, so that they get paid all year long. What happens with that is that sometimes, either due to working overtime or taking time off, that pay isn't exactly aligned. So once a year we do a true-up process where the district goes and looks and can either add or deduct pay accordingly. It avoids an excessively large adjustment at the end of the year. This year, the majority of the staff results in a pay deduction, so we're currently looking at other ways to either do the true-up process more often or something to try and make that more equalized throughout the year. The AROI and strategic budgeting update. So Mr. Stelk talked about this, some of what Dr. Grover touched on a little bit earlier as well, of the recommendations from DMG, the 11. We've implemented some, which we've already identified $1 million that we can recoup out of that. So we're going to continue studying those and see what else we can implement for this year and next. UNL approached us about a grant program they have for some of our teachers to go, some of our teachers who are bilingual, to go and get a dual language and also an EL endorsement. The grant would provide these classes to staff at no cost. So it's a good opportunity for our teachers. Substitute teacher fill rate, still pretty strong. Over the last 4 weeks, we've been around 92.5%. The week of 3/22 was a little bit rough. We were just under 90%. Year to date, we're sitting just above 90%. We reviewed the exit surveys from certified staff who left in 2019-2020. The data didn't reflect anything concerning with regards to trends. Retiree recognition, we talked about how the district usually has the luncheon, and last year due to the pandemic, we couldn't. So retirees receive their recognition in the mail. After discussing this, we decided that at the current time, it's not advisable for us to do an in-person gathering, so we will not be doing that. We'll be looking at doing it through the mail again. Staffing update. District has received approximately 55 retirement resignation and requests for leave of absence this year. Contract renewals have been distributed and are due back April 15th. The district has issued approximately 26 probationary contracts to date. Talked about classified staffing, the administrative staffing. Obviously, the CFO, Dr. Ken Schroeder, has accepted the position. Chief of Human Capital, the screenings and interviews are still taking place. CIA coordinator, the interviews are still taking place for fine arts. For math, Dr. Danielle Berman has accepted the position. Special ed supervisor applications are being accepted. MTSS coordinator Rob Bishop has accepted the position. Principal Principal, Academy of Education, Law and Public Safety. The interviews are still ongoing, and the curriculum principal applications are being accepted. Staff adjustments were reviewed. Next meeting is May 5th at 8:30, and that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. The policy committee has not yet met and will meet on April 12th, so there's no report. 8.5 is the Public Relations and Partnership Development Committee, Mrs. Albers.
We met on Thursday, April 1st at 8 o'clock. First of all, we had Jennifer speak to us about Policy Studies Associates and the contract for the strategic plan, which we heard about today. Also, Leadership Tomorrow presented Jessica Hendricks from Leadership Tomorrow, and she had a special program called Discover GIPS that would be offered to first and second year teachers to help them try to get more connected with the community, because the usual Leadership Tomorrow would not be feasible for teachers because it would make them miss instructional days. Then Analytics and Social Media Calendar on Facebook's GIPS has added 276 followers. This is the third most growth in the state among school districts. We've seen a 2.1% growth across all district social media channels. And the most recent episode of The Heartbeat with Dr. Grover, highlighted with the Islander cheerleaders, was popular. And the next episode will highlight the girls' soccer team. In recent media coverage, GIPS has had more than 50 stories in March in local and regional media outlets. Kendall was in most of them. And our next meeting will be Friday, May 7th at 8 a.m.
Okay, thank you very much. 8.6 is the Grandem Public Schools Foundation Report. Mrs. Jurgens.
Yes, thank you. We met on Wednesday, March 17th at 4 p.m., but Dr. Grover and I jump on at 5:15 p.m. The foundation is firming up scholarships for the class of 2021. This year, the foundation offered 171 scholarships for a total of $502,283. All students who graduate summa or magna cum laude will be honored at an academic honors ceremony at Gish Auditorium on April 14th at 7 p.m. These same students will receive a scholarship from the GIPS Foundation as long as they submitted a scholarship application. Due to the pandemic, we are holding the ceremony first with a take-home reception where students will get a box of goodies to take home and share with their families. We will also stream the evening. Home Federal is the corporate sponsor of that event. We will award $53,725 on this night to 65 students. The foundation has kicked off the annual Added Up to Opportunity staff and board campaign. Board members should have received their packets in the mail. This is the campaign that we will ask all board members to give to. You can give via the foundation, or you can give on Go Big Give Day. Please consult your pledge cards for the methods. The foundation will release the nomination forms for the 2021 Teacher, Staff Member, Administrator of the Year. Forms will be available online only with the deadline of May 21. The corporate sponsor of the program is First National Bank. And the foundation board will not meet in April. So that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. 8.7 is the Governance Committee, and we met on March 31st. Excuse me, and we reviewed the timeline and process for the superintendent evaluation, which will begin tonight in our executive session. And we also started to take a look at different policies. The first one being a policy with regards to chain of command, or how to raise issues. And then we are also developing the policy for the student rep as well. And so we'll continue to work on that. And then we have some other policies that we will continue to work on. And our next committee meeting will be, I believe, May 5th. Thank you. All right. So 8.8 is the GNSA Legislative Committee. And a lot is happening still. This week there was a bill heard, and it did pass first round on the floor. It's LB 644. We did provide information to Senator Friesen and Senator Aguilar to let them know that we do not support the bill. What it requires is that any entity within the county, so like the county board, the city, and the school district, we have to have joint meetings if we want to raise a levy. And then we also have to send out postcards to every taxpayer within the county. So it's very difficult to comply with, and it's also very expensive to comply with. And we feel like there's already a lot of transparency because, you know, we're required to have the open hearings for budget and levy ask by each entity. So since it passed on the first round, not sure what that means or if it'll even make it to the floor the second time. We're still watching LB 408, which is the one where if property evaluations go up, the school district can only, any government agency can only take the first 3% of the raise, but then TIOSA formula is also impacted for the full amount. So if it raises 5%, we can only take 3%, but we will be docked on TIOSA for the full 5%. So it's a double whammy for schools. We've provided information to our senators and to NASB and to other organizations just to let them know what the impact would be. Because Open Sky did that analysis for us, and from 2013 into 2018, how much money public schools, or GIPS specifically, would have lost if that law had been an impact. And not sure when. We think all the bills having to do with property taxes will be heard on the floor the week of April 19th. There are a lot of them. LB 454 is Senator Friesen's priority bill. This is one that GNSA continues to not support. He has been talking to GNSA a lot. He would like to know what it would take to amend it, that we would support it, and just don't really see that there's any changes. And this is the one that would provide foundation aid so that all schools would receive something from the state. But even the schools who would benefit from this aren't too sure about it, because one of the requirements is that if a school district that currently doesn't get foundation or get state aid equalized, and they get some now, they're expected to reduce their property ask by that much, and that may be very difficult for some of them. LB 364 is the scholarship one, and for private schools, they have reduced the amount the first year from 10 million to 5 million, but that still doesn't help anything. And we have talked to the foundation. We actually presented to the foundation in March so that their entire board is aware of how different this bill treats other nonprofits. And so Mrs. Skalberg has shared that she's talked to her entire peer throughout the state, like other foundation peers, and I know that they are providing feedback to senators as well. We do not know if that bill will be heard on the floor. We've not seen a date for that yet. What else? I think we just keep working, and we'll, pay attention and do what we can. So, and we meet every Monday if we have things to talk about. So, all right. So then 8.9 is the NASB monthly update. It's attached for you to look at. The video, I think it was pretty short. Marcia Herring talked about training that's going to be available. I know you attended the new member training virtually, but it sounds like they're inviting you to attend a day in person. It's entirely up to you. And then they talked about some of the legislative bills as well. All right. We reached number 9. There is a need for an executive session for the purpose of the superintendent evaluation, because it is in the best interest of the public to discuss this matter in a closed session. Do I have a motion? Mrs. Albers.
I make a motion for the board to convene to executive session for the purposes of discussing the superintendent evaluation.
And is there a second? Second, Mr. Brown. Please vote. Motion passes.